I'd like to welcome everyone to podcast number 19. Wow, 19. Well, it's been an interesting week. We had the end of the Mayhem race.
Yes.
And I know that it was sort of an interesting topic to me. And we were talking about it a little bit, but it did seem like multiple people made multiple characters, got multiple hundreds, I guess. In one or two instances?
I think two instances. I think
two?
so.
Okay. Did Ziz get 100 on both of his characters?
I actually don't know whether he did. The other guy, I don't know either. Maybe.
Okay. I'm good. I have the thread open for the latter, so I'm gonna look right now.
Just look at it. So you're looking for Pathfinder, Marauder, Berserker.
Scissor and Berserker. No, he got 96 on it.
Okay.
So in reality, I mean, it's impressive, of course, but 96 is you're only a quarter into the push to 100 or something at that point. Whatever it is.
It doesn't take much to get there, especially when you have all the maps, all the gear, everything.
Yeah. Right. Now it's interesting as a long-time racer, and you are too. We had this happen. So it was, I really don't remember the season. Somebody was saying it was like season 2, and that's wrong. I think it was more like season 5, 6, but whatever. It doesn't really. It was a long time ago.
Yeah,
it's years and years ago. A guy named Boof, who's a great racer.
We're talking about regular racing right now. Not a week race.
Not a week race, but of course, GGG considers them the same thing. I mean, I don't. I think most people in the community consider them sort of different, right? Racing is usually
they are different. Like, I don't think it's not like they don't, like they understand that they are different. Like one is an accumulation of points and the other is a race to a certain thing, but at the end of the day, with a certain prize.
Yeah. Okay. So yeah, I mean, I guess the method you go about getting
it's just
the thing
a little bit different.
Is different. Yeah, but I still think the rules that are apply to. I think there's a uniform set of rules.
Yeah.
That's what it goes down to.
Okay. Yeah. I would agree with that.
Now, I mean, it's interesting that when that happened last time, I had a dog in the race, so it was, I guess, a little tougher for me to comment. Someone who was part of our race team, Riths, I mean, in fairness, he fucked up himself. All he had to do was like get a character to level 15, and none of this would have happened. But he died. This was before you got points when you died. Still, so he died, and so Boof managed to get 2 characters to, I think, like 1,205 points and 1,203 points on 2 different accounts. Now the thing was, his accounts were like Boof and then Boof 8 or something like that.
He had like multiple like just numbers after the Boof, so it was really obvious there was him. Yeah, he wasn't trying to like hide it or anything.
No. People had done stuff like that before.
Yeah.
And the thing is, we had always maintained that you could not win, and it really had been said, you could not win multiple prizes for the same thing, right? But it was not explicitly stated that applied to this end of season rewards, right? In terms of this stuff. But it was around then they started introducing the Sig Demi, right? And as people know, this is when you're a very good racer, it's eminently repeatable, although there is some luck involved. It would be very possible if they allowed people to win multiple demis that say, someone like Thraz, who like figured out an edge, which ends up being a huge, like half a level at the end of a race, well, he could get 1 through 3 on Witch, or like Helmet on Duelist, or whoever you want to.
Oh yeah, the signature.
On the signature.
Yeah, and so the signature being after a league. So like there is a race where you compete for like an overall best time in a specific race. So if your best time was like 1:30. Or like it was XP in 2 hours or 1 hour. So let's say you got a 37, and then a 36, and they were all 1, 2, and 3. You would not be eligible for. Correct. You would only be eligible for the top one that you had. Correct. So other people could could compete against you for the other spots. Right.
And I mean I honestly think that's sort of fair because. I don't know. Maybe it's arbitrary, right? I don't know, but those are what the rules were. So anyway, I'm very interested to see, did people win multiple demis?
I will say with this race though, this was a race for multiples. Like, there were multiple. They would probably assume this as, let's say you want to compete Ranger and Marauder. Could you do that? Could you win for both? Say you had number 1 Marauder and number 1 Witch. Would you get one for each in the 6? Yes, because you could say it's the same thing here.
Right. No, and that's and that's fine. So it just is really, I do think that there's a little bit of interpretation.
Sure.
Open to it a little bit, because it's like, I don't know. And I can see it going both ways. And the thing was, they instituted this rule because it was, because it had happened, and my reading of it was that Boof did not deserve to get both. Yeah. And they were like, well, it was a Herculean achievement. Like, okay.
Did he get both in the end?
Boof did get both, yes. And then they changed the rules.
So,
I mean, I don't know what the answer is. I don't want to say I don't care, because I don't think that's true. I'm just saying I'm not like, either way, whatever happens, I will just be like, okay. But I do think that it's something where there's probably a little more clarity is needed slightly. I don't know. Maybe people, I don't want people to think that I'm like jealous of them or something like that. I think that they deserve recognition. They put a ton of effort in, right?
It's just good to have clarity, and it's also because whenever you have these kind of races within races, let's say that there's been a competition for like the Berserker one, and then someone who has all the gear for their Elementalist push swaps over. Well, they're gonna be in a much better spot coming. But you could say the same, like, I've just been muling for a week, you know. So even then, it's probably fair game, I would say. Yeah. On that note, at least.
No, so I mean, it really just comes down to what they say. And anyway, so I guess we'll see. I guess it hasn't been confirmed whether they actually.
So do you think they should get 2 or just the 1?
It's weird. I'm really kind of 50-50 on it, because in my mind, this is much more like the season ending in terms of you accumulate points. Right. And so to me, that's, you achieve one of those. But then of course there's the Sig Demi, right? Which, like you're saying, you could get, like, CW got a Demi in every class one season. Because it gives 1, 2, 3.
Yeah.
So you was possibly, he got 3rd on a couple classes, 1st on one, sort of thing.
I'll say it is kind of, for those, let's say, for those who are not as competitive, or who have less time, who are, let's say they don't want to push for the 1st overall, because they know that they're going to be the top streamers and the top players are going to push for those, because they want to have the top 1 spot overall, and so they have to compete within that bracket. It does make it so that, let's say someone else comes in and wants to have a shot at something, it opens up that possibility. Until Mr. Cicerin Streamer is done and he decides, well, might as well take the least competitive one and just crap them out of their victory. Right. Because that feels kind of, I don't know. It discourages kind of like being a little bit clever with what you pick and actually participating in the race for like the people with less time, at least.
Right. Well, the interesting part about this, and it was interesting to see someone make a thread, which echoes stuff that we've talked about, and maybe we've talked about on the podcast. I don't recall exactly.
What was the thread?
It was talking about how the demi amounts don't really follow any logic from them, and I feel like that's a point that I've made in the past too, where it's like, we got 20 demis.
Oh yeah, in the different seasons we've had over the years, yeah.
Right. So we had 20, and then it went down to 10, even though there was 5 times as many people playing, and you're like, okay, and now it's just the top per Ascendancy, and then, I mean, I guess because it does seem like they are fixated on 20, right? And
Yeah, but that's because of the ascendancies, right? Like one for each.
Right, so it's 20. It's 21 now.
Yeah,
right.
Yeah.
That's how many. Right. So it's like, and is there a demi for unascended? Each class?
That I don't know.
Okay,
I don't think so.
I don't think so either. So they, and I always come back to it. Always makes me giggle a little bit because it's like I understand that we all think in base 5 because that's how many fingers or toes we have, but it's like the game just because. I don't know, it's like I go back to the rocket races. We got 5 things and there were 6 classes. It just was the stupidest, really one of the stupidest things I've ever been a part of. And so this isn't like that. I'm just saying this weird thinking.
I don't know. I think this one at least seemed to be like how it should. I think that felt fine.
I mean, I still think that maybe top 2 per class.
Okay, so you'd like to have some more, like, okay.
Yeah, just something because I don't know, like, so what if I mean, and the thing is, racing reflects this. And as somebody who I believe I have the most second place races in all of PoE, and I'm near the first amount of firsts as well. So it's like, getting second in a game like PoE is not a bad result, right? No. But all too often things are binary. Now, of course, this argument can be extended to infinity because it's like, so then if you give it to 1 and 2,
why doesn't? Yeah, exactly. It just keeps going on.
I understand there's a point we have to cut it off. I just think that the first, where it's only first, is a little for something as long as this, right? So you're neck and neck with a dude, and he gets a headhunter drop. Well, you've lost. Now I understand that that's true for all sorts of things in PoE, but I just think they used to not operate like this. It was just the top 20, which I think if they did it like that, I think that's okay, but of course
but then you're back at the rocket race where
everyone's Inquisitor or whatever. No, that's what I'm saying. I totally understand that. That's why I think you have to kind of put those two things together.
Oh, okay.
So I do think one of the ways to do that is to say you can only win one demi, right? We know that someone can win multiple, and we applaud that, but we're not going to allow that. Right, so I don't know. There's ways that artificially make it a little more interesting and competitive, I think. Anyway, it's obviously very impressive when people do it because it was still hardcore, right? So I mean, people could and die. So there's really, it's nothing. I'm not criticizing them at all. I think that there's a way to get a little bit more into the races. And add a little bit more flavor, because I always liked the fact that it was like, well, I know I can't be 1, but I could be 5th or 6th or whatever. So anyway, on a sort of related topic, I don't really know if it's worth. I mean, do we want to talk about the certain person who we know is a cheater?
I have a little pet peeve here. Okay, I just want to get it out there because I think it's ridiculous that people have been banned multiple times for using programs that are clearly giving you an edge in a race, right? That they're allowed to compete. I think it's fine that they can play the game all they want. They're just not allowed to compete. There has at some point to maintain some sort of legitimacy to the race. They have to exclude certain people. They can't be allowed to compete. It's just. I don't think there's like it's just either or. You can't have it. You can't have something where there's prizes and stuff like that, and then also just allow people who are cheating, because that's what they're doing.
So to play devil's advocate, which I think that's an interesting position for me when it comes to cheating.
Good.
But my issue is, I guess, thinking about this from a business perspective, people who have bought supporter packs or bought whatever, I don't know. I guess I don't know what the company's supposed to do. I know what I would do, which is burn them all. But that's not unfortunately, that's not a realistic, at least this is what it seems like. It's not a realistic thing for GGG to do. Only in the most extreme. Well, it seems
I do think this is pretty extreme because he was back at streaming just recently, and he was caught again with a chicken script. and then he deleted all the votes after that was made public again. Like there's a point where it gets where it gets so ridiculous, and there's so many offenses to where on a case by case they just have to exclude them. Otherwise, why would anyone participate in any of these races if that's what they're up against?
Right. And see, the thing is, to take off the devil's advocate head, this is why I know a number of podcasts ago, people were a little surprised when I was like, I feel like a fool for not cheating.
Mm-hmm.
But I want to be like, this is part of the reason why I feel like that. Right? Because I have all the huge supporter titles. They're not going to ban me if I was doing something minor. You know, I guess there is a limit, maybe if it's botting or I'm crashing instances. Maybe that's something where they ban you because you can actually blow up a very expensive piece of server hardware or something.
Mm-hmm.
Or I don't know. It just, yeah, like at some point you go, okay, but the person's not being punished. So
exactly.
why do the rules apply if, I don't know.
Because the only place where I would see a person like that have any gratification of a game like this, that's the only place where you can punish him. Like, where his gratification lies is where you can punish him. You can't punish him if you just remove something he doesn't care about.
Right. Right.
Which is whenever he does the races and he are allowed to participate.
Yeah. You know, it's such a strange, I don't know. I mean, the thing is, I do think that part of the problem with a lot of this is that people don't understand how powerful these things are. I think that that's the thing that, like if the bot that was working for PoE in like 2014 or so, which, you know, in fairness to GGG, I'm sure there are people that are still bot and stuff, right? This is not I don't know. This is not a perfect thing. They are still banning a lot of them.
Yeah.
I don't know. I would assume a huge majority. That's just my impression. Again, I'm not an expert. I don't work at GGG. But if you saw that bot in action, there was a video on YouTube, and I remember being like, holy fuck. It's playing Path of Exile better almost than I would assume the average person. I mean, it's a computer. So, I mean, I guess fundamentally, unless there's a bug with it, it's going to play better than a person. Now, it might not be random, might be detectable, all these other things. But that's
limited to some certain things it can do and cannot do and all that.
Sure. But I mean, it's pretty insane.
Yeah.
So it's like, I think sometimes people don't realize how much of an advantage some of this stuff really confers. Because I hate to be that. I don't want to be that person that's like, if you disagree with me, you're therefore a cheater. But I do think that's also a small part of it. Because I do think some is ignorance. I want to be fair to people. Some is just ignorance of like what could it possibly do? What could a chicken autopot do? But some of it is also people are people cheating, and it's not an insignificant amount of people. And so of course they're gonna fucking gaslight people into thinking that there's no cheating or it's not a big deal or whatever. But anyway, I don't know. It feels like.
Like at some point, I feel like they have to step down, especially in a growing game that this is. This is no longer a game where it's no longer about the big fish anymore. Okay. It's about a larger community.
Sure, that's true.
Right, in terms of how you monetize and such and such. Obviously, they do have to you do have to please your customers and such. But there's also a point where it just affects. Well, it might not affect a lot of people on like a mechanical sense, right? Where it's like, okay, one guy competes against that guy, but it's more of a what do you call it? Like a perception, right? A community-wide perception that these things are just ignored or allowed.
Right.
Which kind of puts a stain on something like this, and I think that is something you can't have, because I think that's something you can't really put money on that. You can't really put like cents and dollars on how much does this actually affect the bottom line. But this is something that, for me at least, it definitely discourages me to support them financially, and so you can't see that, right? Because if it would step it up on this, I might contribute a little bit more on a personal note. But with this, I don't want to. I'll pay for like a stash tab when I need it, but that's about it.
It's weird. I just get depressed a little bit thinking about it, because this brings back how angry I used to be about it. Like, I was really, 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 really pissed about it. And I don't know. I mean, can't. I'm not. I mean, I hate to be that person, but I'm just not surprised that this is kind of how it's been handled, because it was circumstances, right? They had to focus on making the game good before they dealt with it.
For sure.
So I get that. So, I mean, the fact that the cheating affected, again, 30 people tops in short-term races, 30 versus 50,000, you're obviously going to pick the 50,000. But I do think that some of the way they handled that, especially once they caught all the cheaters, didn't ban a single person when they caught all the cheaters after years and years. And then since then, when they caught the people cheating in the 8 of 8 stuff, 25% of the people who got 8 of 8 in, I think it was the league after, it was either one league or two leagues after Invasion. So that's beyond, and then Bloodlines. So it might actually be the Bloodlines one. I don't remember exactly.
It's something around there, yeah.
Something around there. None of those people were banned. And I know this because we have the list of the first 52 people. That was a confirmed list. And of those 52 people, only 39 were eligible, according to GGG. So that means the other 13 were cheaters. So, and I mean, because I'm a little crazy, but for the next year, I would check those accounts, because occasionally someone who I knew was cheating from season 1 has gotten banned in racing. But that's because I think that they obviously, once you're cheating, you're almost the odds are you're going to continue cheating. But anyway, like that really, really disappointed me, to be perfectly honest.
Yeah.
Now I understand that these people donate a lot, and I understand it's probably a very tough decision for GGG. I don't know. I mean, I feel bad about saying what I really think, but I kind of think the podcast is where we say what we really think. But what I really think is that I should just start cheating, because what are they going to do? I could probably talk about it on stream. I could talk about the podcast. I dare you to ban me. Now, in that sense, maybe they would ban me, right? Because I'm being so blatant about it.
Yeah. You probably incite other people to do the same.
Right.
In that sense.
And, in that sense. And then, but I mean, so basically the check is, are you a total fucking moron? And like, as far as I can tell, Aphromatic is a world-class nuclear-grade moron, because he keeps streaming his cheating.
Oh, in that sense. Okay.
That. Yeah. That's what I'm saying. The cheating part, whatever. I mean, people have to make their own value judgments for themselves. I mean, at the end of the day, the argument that this is a video game applies both ways. Right? When people are like, "What's a video game? Why the fuck would you cheat?" Well, in the same sense, it is also a video game. That's why.
Yeah. There are certain rules that we abide by. Like, otherwise, why participate in a video game if you're not abiding by the rules in the game?
But people can turn that around and argue from the other direction. Anyway, it's I think it's something about human psychology where the reason people get away with it is there's so much. It's not innocent until proven guilty, because I think that's of course always fair. It's the people they're like, well, if the phrase is, if it's too good to be true, it's too good. There's something cheating going on. But we let people get away with it all the time, stock market and trading and all this other stuff in real world examples, because we're like, well, he's just really smart. Okay, well, maybe. But anyway, I don't know. It's annoying to me. It's just so annoying, right? Like it makes you annoyed about racing and participating, right?
It does.
Yeah.
So I really hope that at some point they just take a stance on this. It's something I've been hoping for a long time, and maybe at some point they're gonna do it, and then
Right.
That would definitely be a gold star in my book.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, it's weird because I want to, again, that's why I do think this is some of the problem when there's people out there who think that or whatever they think about me negatively. I do really like GGG. I like them as people. They're cool people. They're always very supportive, interactive with the community. I mean, right, like somebody made the thread about pet sale, and then Bex comes in the thread and is like, wow, that's a great idea, and then they do it. Maybe it was always coming anyway. Yeah, I mean, there's these little things that show that GGG really cares about the community, about the game. Sure. This is not, because the game itself is a labor of love. Right? They didn't make this game to get rich, although it seems like maybe that's happening.
Well, that's good. If you can do both, then why not?
Yeah, if you can do both, that's great. But I'm saying they were prepared to eke out an existence making a game.
Yeah.
Right? That was always the plan. They're like, can we just survive? Right? Then they started having good problems to have, which is there's too many people playing. We have to buy more servers, etc. So, I think that they're really incredible people. And then I still get annoyed. Like I feel like I'm allowed to be annoyed about other separate issues. I love the game, but I hate the way they've handled all this stuff. And so, like, my response when you say you hope they do it and they'll get a gold star, my response would be, don't hold your breath. Because
I'll go.
I would have been dead 6 years ago. So.
Oh yeah, like after the whole debacle about the first cheating wave and all that. Yeah. Like it's not something that haunts me at night. It's just whenever I partake, it's in the back of your mind, and the more times you see it happen and it being just being allowed, then the less and less you start caring about these kind of things, and that's really unfortunate.
Right. And like, what if he
could have been completely legit as well, but like, I don't know.
That's true. That is true. We have. 6 times caught cheating. He could be doing it legit this time. So,
but that's not an excuse for then allowing him this one time.
Right. Yeah,
because we can't catch him this time. There has to be. Yeah. Nah. Enough about this. Let's move on.
Yeah. Move on. So, we had some interesting beta gem things going on. I guess one of the biggest ones was the Pierce change. Or Pierce in general?
That's definitely one of the... Yeah, for sure.
Okay. Do you want to explain? Because I've never played a Ranger /
Oh, so Pierce? So. Well, so basically, they're taking away the unlimited Pierce from most things. So anything that doesn't have inherent unlimited Pierce already can now get Pierce through amount of enemies pierced, rather than a percentage chance. The only things that still have percentage chance, I believe, is where you get projectile weakness and lightning strike quality. Though we could see those things change, probably not. I think they are okay with having a few things, like you have Frostbolt as well, pierces everything. Freezing Pulse will pierce everything, obviously. There are certain skills that are just inherently piercing everything, but something like EK, if you put the Pierce Gem in there, you now get... The Pierce Gem will give you up to 7... I believe, 7 additional targets pierced at the highest level. And it still gives you a multiplier. So it gets you up to a 19 multiplier and then 7 targets pierced. Then you can grab some on the tree. There's +2 targets pierced. So you can, this way, have some skills that do not want to invest into like massive pierce, but they just need to pierce a few targets because it generates, for instance, a kinetic blast. Maybe you feel like, well, I only need to pierce 2 or 3 targets to then create all the explosions that will then blow everything up anyways. And it doesn't give you at the same time, it takes away some of the power of 100% pierce, where you could pierce through 20 targets in a very dense map.
Right. So then, what build was this targeted at? The EK Nova build?
No, pierce in general.
Just pierce in general. Okay.
Yes, KB, Ice Shot, Lightning Arrow, EK Nova, all the builds that benefit from, it's especially aimed at, I would say, Endgame.
So like ED, whatever, with the thing.
ED wouldn't care.
Okay.
ED doesn't really care because ED spreads through contagion, mostly. Yes, it's nice to pierce against a few monsters to get to like back to a totem, stuff like that. That's definitely quality of life, but you don't need that like global pierce. And so you have something like EK Nova, where like one projectile can pierce all the way out through. Like you have the times where you have a shrine with sexton monsters and everything. There's so many monsters on top of each other, and everything just pierces through. So you're hitting essentially maybe 80 monsters at a time, rather than being limited to, I don't know, less.
Did they change Shaper? Is it Shaper's boots?
Yeah, I think that is 4 or 5. It has. So that was changed, yes.
Okay.
So
right, well, I guess we'll see how that all ends up shaping out.
Yeah. Like, what do you think about the change? Like,
well, yeah, the only place where I really noticed it, I feel like in the past several leagues, was the EK build, and then ED. When I made the ED character, people were telling me about getting 100% Pierce strong, because then
it's a huge quality of life, because you just all these times where there's like cannot die. There's less cannot die stuff going around now though, after all the breach stuff, right? Like, I think you see it less because there are so many performance issues with it as well.
That is true. Has it been removed from the game?
No, but you don't see it that often.
No,
is my impression.
That's a good point. Yeah. Well, I kind of, my response almost always to these things is, okay, I bow to their wisdom about it, I guess. It didn't seem beyond a few builds that it was a huge issue that I could sort of tell. I would be more concerned about those builds versus the Pierce thing, but maybe the Pierce is a good way to...
I think it's the majority of builds are not affected by this in a meaningful way. Like it makes some builds easier to do, especially if you are on the left side of the tree. You're a Marauder or Templar or something like that, and you would have to travel all the way over to the Ranger side, the Shadow side, to get the extra Pierce nodes. Now you don't have to. Now you can just... A lot of builds are just fine with X amount of things pierced, and that's all they need for the build to function. So it opens up a lot more builds to take advantage of Pierce in different ways. And now you can combine Pierce with something like Chain. So you pierce through a few and then it chains off. So you can combine things as well. Interesting choices there. And it takes away a lot of the power in the very end game, where Pierce becomes the best mechanic for hitting the most monsters at a time. So it gives a lot of builds a lot of choice, very interesting mechanics. It takes away power from the most powerful instances of where Pierce is used, and I think that's really good.
Yeah, well, all right, I bow. That's what I'm saying. I bow to your wisdom on that, because I think the builds I've played had 100. If they had projectiles, they had 100% Pierce. Right?
Freeze balls, incinerate. Yeah, and they still have Pierce. So,
right. And they're still fine. So
yeah.
But so continuing on that, we have a couple new support gems.
Yeah, we do.
I have not played around with Arcane Surge.
Oh, it's stupid.
Stupid OP or stupid?
Yes. It's
just looking at it seems pretty absurd.
I think there's some identity issues with some of these gems. Same thing with Decay, where everything became Decay rather than being the skill they were. Now you have like movement skills that you would consider on attack-based builds becoming like all-encompassing tools for defense and offense and mobility at the same time. Because I just put it on my shield charge now. So I have Fortify, Mobility, and Arcane Surge, all in one button.
Okay, so you charge in, you get the buff, you do whatever.
Yeah, and whenever I have the totems, I just place down the totems and I just shield charge in place until I get the buff.
Interesting. Okay. I guess people. So go ahead.
It feels really awkward that something that can provide me with Fortify can also provide me with a spell-based buff. That is what gets me the most. That I'm shield charging around and that gives me extra spell power, spell damage. Why?
Yeah, that's that's bizarre. I hadn't really considered that you didn't need it in the link, but that it grants you. Yeah, so you could put the Ruthless support gem, I guess, in the same thing, right? You could put it in your shield charge.
Ruthless? Isn't that... I think that has to be linked with
it says supported melee attacks.
Arcane Surge is just for everything.
So is that wonder if that's just a boo-boo?
Maybe.
That's supported.
But even if it's not supported... Because I could see this as a way of giving players a little bit more power, where they would have to perform an additional action to give their builds some extra power, because they might need some extra power on bosses, for instance, right? Where you have a little extra time to do some more actions, right? You want to proc that, and you want to go in, and you want to kill the boss, right? Because you really need it in that scenario, and so it might be a tool for this new boss health. Because the boss health is really, it's hard. It's really hard to get through some of these. And so it adds an additional thing you can do to then further your damage on your spell builds, at least. And so I can see where they're going with that. I'm just afraid that this becomes... I'm really afraid that it's just going to be another addition and another way of furthering stuff like the shield charge meta, and furthering the builds that have where you interact less, where you just... I don't know. Like, imagine
Okay, go ahead.
I just have so many things I can say about this, because because if you don't, it'll feel the same as Fortify right now. Give it like a few months where this is in the game, and if your build does not have a shield to create Fortify and shield charge, and something to create Arcane Surge, you shouldn't be playing it, because it's going to be so much weaker than everything else.
Well, okay, so I want to share when, I guess it was, these came out for the Act 8 thing, beta, wipe, whatever. So I started playing, and, I was a little behind. I think I was like an hour. I was eating dinner or something when they started it. So I had this gem. I'm like, wow, we have a new support gem. So then I had a 3-link. Then I think an alch drop. So I alched a boarding axe, which is a level 11 axe for anyone who doesn't know. And I actually got maybe it was a essence, and I got like a fizz roll and an attack roll. So the thing was nuts. So I mean, it was already a lot of damage. But then this thing, the Ruthless support plus added fire in a 3-link on Sunder, I 2-shot Merveil Form 1. I think because it procced.
Wow. Okay.
So 75% more melee damage. It pooped on her. So I guess, I mean, it is very funny to me how these things end up happening, where it's a good idea, which I think can really make the game better for melee. Maybe melee doesn't need as much help, but then they feel compelled to give it to casters. And the caster version, I hadn't played with it yet, but so the fact that it works independent of the link and the melee one does not, I want to be like, how? Maybe it's a mistake. Okay.
I feel like it's not a mistake. I think it's intentional that we get to try this. I do think that they are in the beta, and I think this is good though. The beta is a testing ground.
True. That's true. That's what it's for.
Yes.
Yes.
So I'm not gonna give them flack for like saying like, oh, how dare you like add this to the game? Don't you see how bad it? Like, they might have considered all these things already. They just wanna actually play test it and see them, like, just see how players gonna react. We have an idea of how they're gonna react, but let's actually test it.
Yes.
On the Lime realms. I think there
was something that was interesting. I read the thread. I wish I remembered exactly what you had to do. There's somewhere where now you can get 3 or 4 of your ascendants. So you get 6 or 8 points when you're level like 27 now.
Yes.
Because as long as somebody else has completed done everything. Okay.
You can get boosted through everything.
You get boosted through. Okay. That's...
Do you like that? Is that A-okay for Morris?
Obviously that's A-okay for me. I mean, I don't think, for me personally, it doesn't go quite far enough for what I would want, but it's a nice, if that's intended, I think that's a nice... That's nice. It's probably you can run through level 30 on a character, and if your character dies because a mob hits you or whatever, and then you pay for a carry.
You try again.
Yeah, and try again. That's why I'd pick up all sorts of life nodes and just, I don't know, put on a shield and just pray I don't die, and then great. This is fucking over.
You're still running the gauntlet, which is something I think is a good thing, that you still maintain the idea of the player actually has to run the gauntlet to get the thing. It's just now there is a loophole that you can utilize if you want to.
But now this is also predicated on the fact that you on another character have completed all of the trials, right?
No, because I could have gotten a carry in Uber Lab without me having completed all of them. I know that because I was offered that, but I wanted to do it on my own, so I did that.
Well, okay, but so then
I know knowing that.
Knowing that, I sense a great disturbance in the force because I got all tingly and excited about that. So that means that GGG is 100% going to nerf and stop that from happening. I know that.
I don't know.
I know that. I know it. I know it in the deepest part of my soul. Because they want you to have to complete the content when it comes to lab. They're fixated on the fact that if, we don't care what you think or your hairstyle or what your parents are like, you must do every trial and you must do the lab because it is,
let's see.
Some German word for efficiency is what they would scream out. I don't know. It's just
there could be like a halfway measure in between this.
Yeah, I guess that's true.
Let's see.
Yeah, we'll see. So that's an interesting change I just wanted to sort of highlight. What was the other thing I really wanted to say? I was really actually a little surprised that there weren't more Ascendancy changes, but I guess because we don't have the full Pantheon yet.
Mm-hmm. I think they're more focused on that. I think they're pretty happy with the Ascendancy system right now, and they're more. To me, it seems that there are more. Like core issues with the game there's not really big issues with the Ascendancies. Rather the issues are more the double dipping, the Pierce was definitely the new AoE, right? If it had stayed, that would have been the new AoE. So they're just taking, they're nibbling the button immediately, right? They're just, okay, let's go at it. Let's not have that where you just, Pierce's new AoE.
Can we wait? Can we have a big caveat though? The caveat being you're okay with the amount of power Ascendancy grants you. Right. So I just want to, because I'm not okay with it.
Well, okay, so we're not like, okay, so
if we accept this is the new normal, then it's fine.
It's okay. So I'm not speaking from my point of view. I'm speaking from they are okay with how Ascendancy is. So that's not where they're focusing there are more overarching problems at a more core part of the game that needs to be addressed. And I think if you try and address both at the same time, you're going to end up butchering some of the you could end up butchering some of the Ascendancies, making them like unplayable if you do both at the same time without playtesting the one core mechanic being changed before making some major changes to some of the others, maybe. Okay. And some of these things will have an immense effect on the player power as well. Like double dipping is huge.
And how far is it removed at this point? It's basically
it's gone.
Like 5 or 10% of the power it used to be in some sense.
But it's not even a thing. You can't. There's no double dipping anymore. So if you want to take advantage of an ignite, sure you can always ignite with something if it has fire damage, right? You crit with it, you ignite with it. Yeah, you can. But if you're not supporting that ignite, it's going to do the base damage of what an ignite could do with being completely unsupported. And it doesn't scale off the same nodes either. It doesn't scale off projectile damage in the same way. It doesn't scale off AoE damage, like area damage and all those. All that is gone. You can scale burn through totem damage, for instance, or through like some of the secondary damage, through mine damage and trap damage. Because you're supposed to be able to make a mine that will then burn. But it's not you don't have the double dipping effect, where it increases the base damage, and then the base damage is then utilized in the calculations for the burn. But then the same number that increased the base damage is now also increasing the burn, hence the double dipping. You don't have that anymore.
So I wonder what is the next exploitable thing? What's the next thing down the list for what we currently have in the game? In terms of fast moving builds. SRS, some sort of minion, something. They're introducing all
definitely
sorts of
very
minions.
powerful, for sure. There aren't anything that are really like, there are things that scale damage to an absurd amount still in the game, and then there are things that are just inherently powerful. Once you start stacking things that are not inherently stackable, or just not like that has a limited amount of either projectiles or balls and AoE or amount of totems, right? Because you can triple totem, so like adding an additional totem to a totem build could essentially be a 50% more damage increase, which, so you get that one shield, and now with all this, all the physical nodes, so you have all the physical nodes in the all the physical gems. So let's say you go Ancestral War Chief. There are different ways you can do this. You don't have to go 3 totems, but once you add the 3rd totem, if you can go Blood Magic, there's the Blood Magic shield, right? With the extra totem.
Yep.
So you do that, now you have 3 totems. But you're not losing out on hatred anymore, because you can get brutality and the what was that, ruthless? You can add those in instead. So now you're not scaling with that as fire and wed. You're scaling pure fist, so you don't care that you lose the auras. So now you have that extra totem. And now you get 50% more power. Bruno, one of my the people who hang around my channel, made a build doing. He was being very clever with having a totem doing some bleed and maiming for him, so he could use bloodlust as well. So his totems were doing. He had 2 totems that were doing up towards 2 million DPS per.
Okay.
Yeah, it's pretty crazy, but it was kind of that all the stars have to align and using abysses and everything. And then there's barrage, because you can stack projectiles. It's another outlier. It's very expensive to do though, to get all this together. So there is like a stopgap there where you have to get Dying Sun, the barrage helmet enchant, and corrupt projectiles. But it gets to like you end up with like some builds end up with multiple millions again. But again, if you compare that to Double Dip Burn and Poison, those builds were reaching like 80 million.
Right. And they got there just by showing up, basically.
Well, they got to the stage where these endgame like barrage builds and stuff like that, and Molten Strike builds get to. They got to their endgame stage by basically just being there. Right. And then you could push that 10 times further with the double dipping.
Yeah. Well, so it'll be interesting to me what ends up, how Pantheon ends up working. I guess we're not going to see 9 and 10, right? This is all the content we're going to get, I believe, right? They've said that 100%.
Don't we get some new gems to play with, or is that also in 9 and 10?
Let me just tell you from a perspective of somebody who has been part of the sort of testing crowd for a long time, I'm having a very big problem getting motivated to run a character right now, just a little bit, because I usually like taking whatever the new gem is, even if it's bad, and running that, making my character with that, and then feedback on that, and then I test all the other stuff. But leveling a Sunder Marauder at this point is just a little just a little snoozy for me. So but so yeah, I'm hoping we get some new gems. I don't know, maybe they're only going to come out 4, 9, and 10. I guess the other question I have is, I'm not concerned, but just slightly inquisitive, I guess maybe the word. When exactly is this going to be coming out? Because we don't have a release date right now, do we?
Well, they have gone so far as to say
Have they said August?
Yeah, they said early August as a what do you call that? As a they're hopeful to put it out early August, I guess you could say.
Right.
Like no confirmation yet, but they are trying to push out at least for that. That's their target date. That's the word I was looking for. That's their current target date, is to push it early August. There's not even date, but just that area.
It wasn't the original target date though, like July 1st or something.
Sure,
First
yeah,
week
it
of
was.
July.
It was.
So yeah,
but then they haven't really said anything since then, and so now they're giving us a new one, right? So it's probably somewhat close to that, I would assume, at this point.
Okay, yeah, I do think it's kind of funny, having been through the process a couple of times, where I don't know. I guess it's nice to be eternally optimistic, but it does seem like this is now the third time this has happened where they're like, here's a date, and then they keep pushing it back. And I much prefer that. Yeah. But I do think it's a tough thing, because people say, I can't believe this is true, here's where we are. People save vacation. If they
that's true.
Like yours or mine, they save vacation, and they're like, but I mean, my last job, I couldn't have just been like woken up tomorrow to be like, I'm taking the first week of August off. That would not have. Now, if I had given them 2 months notice, I could do whatever I wanted, but you can't. There has to be a lead time a little bit. So
yeah, that's true.
It's a tough thing to balance. I appreciate. I'm not criticizing them in terms of this is the right thing to do. Clearly, don't release a bad game. It is funny though that we have this. I don't know. I feel like we have this sort of schedule a little bit, and it feels like they really should stick to the schedule. But maybe this is a learning process, and I don't know all the particulars.
Yeah.
But, so, for instance, Legacy. When was Legacy supposed to end?
A couple of weeks ago, I think 3 weeks ago or something.
I guess let me look up.
I think so.
Legacy League PoE wiki. There we go. Legacy League official. He doesn't even does it. Oh, 3rd of March 2017. So that means 3rd of June.
Yeah, exactly. Like a month ago.
April, May, June. So yeah, a month ago. So in reality, we should be in another league. And in fact, on top of that, well, no, because listen, if this thing is early August and we don't have a firm date yet, how much do you want to bet it's going to be? Now, I want to point this out.
Okay.
Well, the first time we talked about this, I remember I said something about how it doesn't work out right, because I know that they want to release a league early December.
Yeah.
But as this has gone further and further, right? So if let's say August 18th.
Yes. Okay. Let's say that.
So that's September, October, November 17th, I guess, is when it would end. Friday.
A couple of weeks
off. So then 2 weeks off, December 1st, Friday. Boom. So
bold predictions. Okay.
Yeah. So we're getting closer and closer to where it like matches up for the schedule. And then I come back to, you know what, if you weren't going to be close, and maybe it's an unknowable thing, but it seems like it would just be better to just have a 2-month league then. Now, I guess that I know that takes people away from some such and such and such and such, but on the other hand, I think people will be a little happier with that. And I mean, or you really have 2 months of racing and a league, or have a couple things going. I mean, and I know that they're kind of doing that right now, but it's every step of the way. It's been, well, let's tack on 2 weeks. Let's tack on 2 weeks. Let's tack on 2 weeks, right? Instead of just being like, here's the plan, and then here's what we're going to do.
Follow that.
Yeah,
it's like it's always it's hard for anyone to, like, you can adapt maybe once or twice. But like if everything is constantly in flux and you never know, it gets very stressful as well. For like I would assume the working man trying to figure out his schedule if he's really invested in PoE.
Right. I wish there was a race season, an actual full-on race season.
That'd be cool.
Because we clearly had the time. They clearly had the time to do it.
Yeah.
And so. I'm just a little surprised, because it does seem like if you look at the calendar and that's your objective, working backwards from the fact that I know, like, I am so certain that releasing a league in December is something that is like, I don't know, maybe I'm the only person who's noticed that. That cannot be true, but it just seems like it's always the best league. They seem to pretty much always have.
Yeah, I always enjoy my. I've always enjoyed all the.
I throw things in my apartment.
I definitely always enjoy like the Christmas leagues.
Yeah, they're high. There's high participation.
Yeah, they're always good.
And there's fun sales, and people are getting, I mean, my parents always give me, $200 for Christmas. I can buy, whatever I want, GGG crap. So it's, I mean, it's like so if you're working backwards from that, it seems like the schedule I just laid out is what's really going to be happening. And if you do go back even further, you say, oh, well, I guess we really have time for something that fills 2 months. And even if this delays the release of 3.0, why not just start, okay, so we're not sure right now, so then we're just going to give ourselves extra cushion. It's because the thing for me is I feel like the mindset that they used to have is a mindset of the old, I mean, it's not old, it's the same company, but when it was so uncertain. Things are not uncertain. People are going to show up whenever they have the thing, right? So just being like, okay, well, we're doing stuff for 2 months. We're going to we'll have a league, I guess, and they want to do the beta test, but there should have just been a league on the beta, right? Or something. And like you get...
I still don't know if I think that's a good idea.
Okay, but so fine. I'm not like banking the farm on that idea. I'm just saying there's things that could have been done.
I understand what you just... That kind of like just having something to do, having something like said, okay, from this day to that day, we're doing this. And then we have 2 months instead of every week waiting. Oh, when are they going to release? Oh, when are we going to get some news? When are we?
Yeah. And I think, and you brought this up, I believe it was last time or 2 times ago, where you said that I was goal oriented, and I was reflecting on that. And I think that's in fact very, very accurate for me personally. Now I don't know what other percentage of people out there. Maybe this doesn't apply to that many people. When I don't have a goal, I'm like where I am right now, where I feel like I have nothing to do. And I could stream myself something, but I'm just
yes, definitely.
I'm ready to tear my eyes out. I'm like, what's my objective right now?
Yeah, it's definitely true.
But like I feel like we don't have a lot of the core systems really. There's no new gems to test. This is the first time that's ever happened where I don't have a new gem to test. So I'm just like
it's hard to really know what to do with the game right now for a lot of people, I think.
Right, and so
for me, I can always like just test things. I've never depleted my never-ending amount of builds I want to try, and so that never goes away. But I don't think very many people are in that mindset. I do think a lot of people are like you, I would like to have a goal. I would like to build towards something and not just build for the sake of building.
And for at least for me, it feels like the beta league is kind of a filler league, whether or not you want it to be like that. It's what it's
I can get behind that. Yeah,
a little bit. So it's why not either take advantage of this or direct it in a different way, or anyway. These are obviously tough questions. Maybe there is no answer, and of course, hindsight's always 20/20. It's easy for me. It's always easy to be the person criticizing, right? When we've seen the results of some of this stuff. I do want to say though, you and I talked about this, and we talked about the beta schedule long before the beta actually came out, and we raised these issues, and so we were pretty on the money, I want to say. So like, I want to give them a lot of credit. Just looking at a calendar and thinking logically about this, and based on what happened in the past, it didn't seem like it was too much of a stretch to sort of change their direction a little bit. That's all.
Yeah.
And so, I guess next summer, when is 4.0 coming out? I guess next spring, 2 springs from now. So that would be March 2019. It seems like it's like 18 months or so is every expansion. Or am I wrong about that? Can I click on 2.6 and see another?
That could be. There's like every 18. Not really. No, because we had an expansion last year around August, right? That was Atlas.
Okay, yeah. So every 0.1. Well, so that's the question. So then there's
that's not really. That was not really. They have like, didn't they say they have something like, they have like a big edition, and then they have there's like an in between, right? So they have like a systems change, and then they have an act addition.
Yes.
Pretty like in that sense. I think they said something about that as well. That's kind of like what they do.
Yes. No, I feel like I remember reading what you're talking about. And so it's almost like we need another word. I don't remember what word they used. I don't think they had a word, because it's like it's almost like you have to call it mini expansion, big expansion.
Yeah. I think there's something like that. But
like, it really should be. It's like this we're having right now is an expansion.
Yes.
And then they have an add-on. They have like they have an add-on.
Yeah.
There's a big patch add-on. Of the point.
That's what they call a mini expansion, I think.
Yeah, mini expansion. So, anyway, so it's like, if we're gonna do a 4.0, where I guess we'll go to Act 12. I'm curious what ends up happening at that point. Will there be Act 11? You go to space and fight space invaders. I don't know. It just seems like this would be. We now have 2 samples at least, maybe 3, of this sort of progress. So maybe they could plan a little bit more accordingly, so that people could have stuff that they could do. Because I know for me, I didn't always care so much about the league stuff, because my goal was always racing. But so we've transitioned away from that. Well, so then all your bread goes in the league, 3-month league basket, and then when that's not cultivated and pruned and grown correctly, I think that leads to some agita. So anyway, I don't beat it to death. But so I'm very curious what ends up happening with release now, because I do want to say I am very nervous about the whole no one sees 9 and 10. I mean, we're not really supposed to talk about it, but I'm pretty sure we're not going to get on an alpha either.
Probably not, no.
Probably not. So then, I mean, okay, totally fine with that, but that just makes me so nervous about.
Yeah, some balance might be off.
Yeah, some balance might be off.
But
that's a good way.
On a personal note, for me, I would take that over having all of it. I think it creates so much excitement for the actual thing. Sure. And like everyone comes in at the same time, playing the same content, nothing is spoiled, and it just adds another like level of excitement going, especially because there's nothing worse than going through content and it just gets added on after you already it just kind of gets added on immediately while you have like a powerful character already, or there's like a special thing you're doing, like so you end up not even noticing it. I think that's something that's it kind of takes away from it. Like I even had that in this time around with the Act 7. I just blew through it because I had like an idea of what I wanted. Because it was just like another addition to the beta, and that's kind of how I looked at it. So it kind of took away from my experience, because I was just trying to get through the beta stuff, right? Okay, this time I need to test this and that and that. And so I didn't have the same kind of approach that I would have had on, like, say, in a release date.
Yeah. What do you think about... Well, I mean, I guess I don't know enough about it. What do you think about the fact that I really feel like I get like a little snippet here and there about Xbox, and then it just doesn't seem like there's not as much hype as I would have expected for it.
Really? I never expected there to be that much hype around it anyways. It never seemed like as if it was something. I think it seemed that they're really excited. To me, it felt at least that they're really excited about them putting like how great of a product they had produced out of the effort invested. Right? They had these 2 guys working on it for such and such amount of time, and it's really like it's really been paying off. And then there's the huge backlash on that, thinking that now it's just going to be an Xbox game. But I never think that was the intent either. I think it gave them a new perspective and allowed them to work on different systems that they, in a way that they couldn't before. That's what it always seemed to me, at least. So
yeah.
The one thing I'm curious about though is, weren't it supposed to beta as well? Like the Xbox?
I think that there was something I watched where when it was Jonathan talking at is it E3 or what? Where were the
E3 was
Xbox
like
was set up?
there was the Xbox for the Act 7 where they were fighting Solaris and Lunaris. That stuff,
No,
right?
wasn't it? Oh, was that 7 or was that 8?
No, that's 7. That's the one we're in right now. Wait.
Yeah. Okay.
No, we're in 8 now.
We're in 8 now. I thought that
Oh
was
no, that was like
well,
8. I'm sorry. 8.
Yeah, it was 8. Yeah, because Cooters had her.
Yes.
Someone taped her doing the test, and yeah.
So that was E3.
So I thought. Okay, so I thought that was said. There was something said about that, maybe that there would be a beta test, or maybe I don't know. I feel like I've read it somewhere, but I can't recall where I read it. So I don't know how that. I guess how does it work? It just gets downloaded to your Xbox. I'm assuming, right? Then
I think so. I think you just like Steam, you go into your Steam account, download game for whatever, and play.
Right.
Pretty straightforward, I would assume.
Now I know I said it before. It hasn't come out yet, so I haven't. But I want to see how this downscaling.
Ooh, I can't wait.
Stuff, blah blah blah.
Yeah.
I want to see what happens.
Yeah, same.
I guess I don't. I feel like I know a little bit about computer graphics and stuff since you kind of have to as a streamer, and you want to make sure things look nice and FPS and all stuff. But in terms of the technical, how we get from A to B, no idea. Enough CUDA cores and all this crap. But so I'm very, very, very excited. We talked about it last time with the Burning Ground, and I just I want to see what ends up happening, because I feel like that's such a big.
For me, it's like waiting for Christmas.
Right. Well, it's the last bastion of the grumps.
It really is just that for me is as exciting as figuring out what I'm getting for Christmas. It really is. Right. It could be horrible, but it could also be great.
Right. Yeah, and I really the people point to that as, and I have to agree with them. At some point, it detracts from the game. You're really enjoying something, and all of a sudden you're like, "Whoa, what the hell just happened?" So I think, and desync, right, as we said last time, desync, same thing. So waiting with bated breath for that. So that's exciting. I wonder if there's anything else from the beta. Let me look over this thing real quickly here.
Okay.
I noticed this perfect agony.
Oh yeah.
Grants 30% of critical strike multiplier applies to ailments. So they dumpstered that, I guess, is what happened.
Yeah, that's what you call dumpstered.
Yeah,
that's the term.
Yeah. And it did seem like something with poison. Where was the poison change? I thought there was
this affects poison as well.
What affects poison now?
Perfect agony.
Oh, right.
And Viper Strike duration, I believe, got cut in half.
Okay. Oh yeah, and there's I forgot that there was lesser poison was a support gem that was added.
Oh,
right?
Yes. So what they've done, I believe lesser poison is now 40%. And then everything that had poison on hit before was reduced to 60.
Okay.
So now forcing you to either use that gem or get it somewhere on the tree. They also added some poison nodes on the tree to give you more places to grab chance to poison, I think. So to not just give you what is essentially ignite for free.
Now I found that at level 5 or something in my character playthrough of the.
What did you find?
That I found lesser poison or whatever it is.
Oh, okay.
Because I've got it open here. Lesser poison support. Supported skills have 4 to 6 added chaos damage. Actually, it was pretty fucking OP low level. That's a fucking shitload of because it
for
anything because it penetrates. Now, I mean, obviously, the higher you get, it's going to be less.
Yeah.
I think it starts off like 2 to 5 or something. Yeah. Added flat chaos damage, but it's pretty strong low level. So anyway, it's just interesting. They've done some of these things which I think are interesting, where it does seem like they're really finally trying to address some of the early leveling stuff.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
It did seem like the plan for a long time was just give people more power, but all that did was break the end game and not really change anything about levels 1 through say 40 or 50. So it seems like they've really focused on. I think they've made the the decision that, okay, if we're going to make it so it's really fluid, the level, we really want as like everything we can to get them past Brutus or get them past whatever was the barrier where people stopped.
Have you have you checked out the new tutorial stuff?
No.
You should try and turn it on just for. It's definitely a lot. I remember coming into the game like in the first year or so, and I just couldn't understand why they didn't have some sort of tutorial. There's something to kind of guide players through in the beginning, because it just seemed like you lost so many players right there.
Yep.
So that's always something that always puzzled me. So I'm really happy to see that they've really done something to create a good tutorial now.
Right, but I think it was like an almost unsolvable problem, because I know that at one point I wanted to create kind of tutorial for racing of each class, and like people were, Ziggy D has videos like that. There's people who make beginner videos. This guy right now, it's is Engineering Eternity, is that his YouTube name, or Engineering something?
I think it's Engineering Eternity. I believe that's him.
First of all, let me just say, great videos, like A++.
Yeah.
I do also think that if you haven't ever made a video, and I have like amateur, where I was going to school for my computer science degree, one of the things I did was like film editing and stuff. So I'm not a pro or anything, but I know a little bit about it, and like the amount of effort that goes in to truly editing a good video is immense. People almost
it takes a lot of effort.
I mean, like it's like you look at Marek LeFou and his videos; those must take him the entire league. He's probably working 3 hours a day on the video, and I'm not joking. Like it's much work.
There was like a post not too long ago that he was really swamped with all of it.
Yeah,
and
that's why I brought him up. Yeah. So I mean, it's and like you want to know why Crip is smart. Why is Crip such a smart, like really, really good streamer? Because he maximizes his reward to effort ratio.
Yes.
Okay, because when he makes a YouTube video, it probably does only take him about 20 minutes to make it, and I'm sure he has someone helping him edit at this point, but like his style is first of all infinitely scalable, right? He could sit down and make 6 videos a day if he really wanted to. And it's really not 20 minutes, it's more than that, but I'm saying he wouldn't get much more benefit out of all sorts of flashy editing, but that would take 75 times as long. So anyway, my point being, though, the problem was tutorials, if they weren't in the game, they would had to be something like through YouTube. But the problem is, I know when I started making those videos, and I think I did a Witch and a Marauder, then I was doing a Shadow and a Templar, and then a patch came out and changed everything. So that all that content was just garbage at that point. And I don't blame GGG. That's just the nature of the game. I think was moving so fast back then. That like making a guy was like,
you're probably
and that
right.
was true for them. That was true for them too. Things were changing, and you're just like, well, everything's changed. So it's interesting how now is the time where they're sort of solving some of that, and it's unfortunate that they lost those people back then, but
they'll get them back.
They'll get them, and I think the key part is very interesting is how they've done 2 really good things. One, they were not Diablo 3, although I think Diablo 3 is really not as it's now getting to the point where I think it's getting to the point where people are like ripping on it beyond what it really deserves to be. Ripped on about. It's always how this stuff works. Everything's great until it's dead, and please stop hitting him, sir. He's already dead. And so we're kind of there with that. But on the other hand, Path of Exile has done a really good job, or GGG, I should say, of solving huge problems in a flashy way. So desync gone, and then so it's like people don't like leveling the character 3 times. Well, that's kind of how ARPGs have always worked. Okay, we're just going to completely get rid of that. So all those people have a chance to come back. They say, "Wow, so much has changed." So I think that's why they're making a bit of a push, tutorial, whatever. And that's why I do think that whatever league this is, to sort of jump a bit, it's going to be a kind of a relaxed league, because we want people to get into the game and get in the maps and whatever. So, yeah, I would hope. I would think that's really their focus, and it seems.
No, I think that's a really good point, good. Especially with such an evolving game early on, that we didn't have some of these things. and there was an actual there was just they were posed with a very real problem that were them holding them back from actually creating some of these things, because they were things were so much in flux. So if they added something, they would have to redo all their work, because now everyone expects there to be a tutorial. And so you go back into the game, well, where's the tutorial now? These things are expect to be there, right? So let's say that they have major changes and you were used to one tutorial. Well, and now I want a tutorial for that as well. You come back in, there's nothing.
Yep.
Or it's the same and it doesn't work, and that's just terrible.
And I it just ends up being one of these things where they just have to do, in terms of that stuff, they have to just try to pick the middle path that works the best. I think you see this in all sorts of games. I know that League of Legends changed the jungle, and I just stopped playing. I was primarily played jungle, and I just was like, I don't really care about relearning all this crap. So I do think that's one thing that they've managed to do pretty well, is changes are incremental, and then you're building on what you learned before, and so you don't, they're not just tossing everything out. And so then that means that they have to pick the appropriate time to do this tutorial, which if now's the time, I think it's good. I did see a post on Reddit about how if you don't pick up the starter gem, you can't get past the wall.
Yeah.
I mean, like, those
I was
little
running
things
into
like
the wall.
that.
I was literally
Okay.
I had the tutorial on in the beginning, and no, I hadn't equipped the gem, because normally I
equip it at Hillock or whatever.
I kill it and then I do it running. I was like running into the wall. What's going on?
Right.
It was just like popping and flashing. And I equip the gem. I just didn't see it because it wasn't in my mind.
Right. Now, if you turn the tutorial off, that no longer happens.
You can just run through.
Yeah. Okay. No, I think that's really.
And the shiny chest is finally producing something for you.
Yes, that's right. That's right. And the interesting part to me is, I wonder if they still default you to standard, or do they default you to a league when there's a league going on?
I actually don't know.
Okay. I feel like that's a
default you in what way?
When you click create character,
it's probably just standard. Maybe it's in the league. I don't know.
Okay, I hope it's in the league. If it's not, I really think that
I think whenever we have a league in the beta, obviously there's no league.
There's no league, so it's
I think that it defaults you to the standard league.
Okay.
In the live game.
Right. Okay. But yeah, I mean, this is clearly the time to do some of the stuff, and I think they've done a pretty good job with a lot of this stuff. Yeah. Because on one level, you have to say they're probably kind of saturated. People kind of know about PoE at this point. So how much is a tutorial really?
I think there's plenty of room to grow. I think it's still.
No, absolutely. But I mean, if you think about it, they have limited resources, and they have to. You know what I mean? So I think that was a good call. I'm just saying, I think it was a good call. It's not a surefire win, right? I mean, nothing is, right?
No, for sure.
Yeah.
It's something you do if you expect to keep growing.
Right. Or at least very much hope to keep growing.
Yeah. Well.
Yeah. Let's see. Was there anything else big with beta? I don't think so. That was super. I mean, I guess they've changed a bunch of skills based on double dipping and based on status ailments, right? Because Righteous Fire got changed.
Yeah.
Scorching Ray's damage was reduced.
Yeah, Scorching Ray was crazy good.
Why? So what was?
Oh, there's so many multipliers in the game
now, I guess. Right.
Yeah. So there's I think there's one additional multiplier that Scorching Ray got, and some of the gems were then also improved, like burning damage with almost 60% more damage that you could then add to Scorching Ray.
Yeah.
And RF is a lot easier to run, so you don't have to invest into getting all the regen nodes because of MOM. It just had so many things going for it, so they had to bring it down. And even I still think it's probably it's probably going to be one of the go-to Shaper and Uber killers in hardcore. Okay. The way it's looking right now.
With what, max damage or defense plus Scorching Ray?
No, you have both. You have MOM. No, you have an 8-9k life pool with 1 million DPS or something.
Okay.
I think it's something like that. You end up with.
Because I really liked playing Scorching Ray.
Yeah.
It was really right up my alley.
Mm-hmm.
But it just felt so. I got to the point where I pooped on every. You just spin around and everything dies.
Yeah.
It still just felt not great in the meta, because back when that came out, I still, it was very much the height of the shield charge.
Well, it's definitely well. You could shield charge with Scorching Ray.
Sure, that's what I was doing. I was doing that. I'm just saying it felt like so. It felt like you were. I'm trying to how to describe it. You were like zoom and then screech and run into the wall and then zoom and then versus there was much more of a roller coaster effect because you were going so fast.
Once you played on the Inquisitor, and I think that is to me at least, it seems like the go-to character for it. You get Instruments of Virtue, which gives you so much attack speed and cast speed. And then you get cast speed and attack speed, I think, when you stand on the desecrated ground. So you can 360 so fast. And then there's and then you have to invest. Like there's a different way you invest your points. So you get a more fluent character. Also something I tried out, like have you ever tried just building enhance on Scorching Ray? I had a plus one Skin of the Loyal, like corrupted, so it's +2. You add enhance, like a high level enhance there, into your Scorching Ray, and you get like an additional 40% beam length.
Okay.
So it goes off the screen. It's fairly funny with enhance. It's actually a really good gem for clear speed. It's like a better AoE, because you end up with like 60% beam length or something.
At that point, I think there's a beam length enchant too.
Yeah, there is.
Is it 10, 28?
No, it can actually be a really good clear build as long as you have a good enough attack speed to shield charge.
Right.
Oh yeah, and you can shield charge with Arcane Surge still. So there's a little buff in this patch as well for.
That's true. All right. Well, I guess we know we have a potential. Got to go. Maybe we're gonna go back to the max block Scorching Ray MOM character.
Max block is an option. I think if you're going for something like a Shaper and Etziri, though, you don't really go that route because you're more invested into getting the damage and a higher life pool to not get one bonked. Because those are real risks in those areas.
Yeah, I guess at the point is you just get to the point where you're pooping on everything anyway.
Yeah.
So we've come full circle. We've come full circle to me being like, God damn it, get rid of this fucking 4 million DPS bullshit. So
well, it's not going to be as like there's defense matters more now because things take longer.
It's like I'm trying to think of a real world example. I don't know. It's a defense matters in the sense of we can't stack 16,000 ES, so we have to figure out the new way to get the highest effective health pool just to survive the occasional hard hit because we're still blowing up everything. Like, there's no. I think that's the real problem.
Well, the thing is, right now though, it's harder to. It is a lot harder in 3.0. It will be a lot harder for a lot of builds to regain their health pool prior to ES. So having good mitigation is going to be powerful because there's only so much life you can gain back. So if you keep taking hits all the time, then you can't actually outlast that. So block is going to be more powerful, I think, in some builds because of that.
Sure.
Because otherwise you're just going to end up dying over time.
Right. Oh yeah.
So don't be too discouraged, I would say.
No, I'm not discouraged. I still think that for the old men off my lawn, I walked uphill both to school both ways uphill. People were still in search of recapturing some of that older feel of the game a little bit. It may never come back. I think that if the double dipping's really gone and Vol skills aren't this stupid.
Well, you have this in breaches more than anything, I think. Which is probably why you enjoy them so much, because you are overwhelmed all the time and you're forced to be in the fray all the time.
Right.
So
although I don't know about that, because when you watch, I remember I was like, wow, breaches can be totally insane, and then I'm looking at Etup's Howa character. I guess this was in Breach, and he's just
well, that was also Volpact. Volpact is insane.
That's true. That's true. That's true. Yeah. So without Vault Pact, I guess with that, it could be some interesting stuff. I kind of now is the time, in my opinion, to remove Vault Pact. That's what they should have done.
Yeah, it's funny because I was studio crafting builds today.
Were you using Vault Pact on your Berserker?
No, I was using Vault Pact on every other Ranger build I made, and it just stacked 7k life. Right. So I don't have 10k ES anymore, but I have 7k life.
Yeah, and you have a pot you can still hit. So
yeah, it's kind of ridiculous though, because once you pet. So I was making a Tempest Ranger bow thing with 7k life, and I was getting, so this kind of shows how strong Vault Pact is. So I was hitting the leech rate cap, right, without Vault Pact. So you hit that immediately. So once I put on Vault Pact, I got to 300,000 healing per second. All right, so however much health I can get, it's going to be immediately filled up every time. Right, so you only live in...
This is Path of Building, Diggy?
Mm-hmm.
This is Path of Building where you were seeing these numbers? Yeah. Okay, just confirming that. Yeah, keep going.
Okay. No, yeah. So, right, you have Victors. So the only limit is actually to refill your health in an instant is how hard you can get it. Which is also why ES was so strong. For anyone wondering why ES was so strong, because once you add in Vault Pact and a 20k life pool, it doesn't matter like how large it becomes. You can keep scaling. If you can keep scaling the life pool with the damage we have, you're gonna have immediate leech. So for someone who for 7,000 life, it's a lot more balanced because you can only go for 1 to 7,000, right? So it's like healing from 1 to 7,000 rather than healing from 1 to 20. There's a big difference, at least. And also you are still vulnerable to getting one shot because these kind of builds that do get this kind of leech rarely have more than that. 7,000 is something that is quite high at least. For a build like this, but you can go like Calm, you can get to like 8k probably.
Well, yeah, for me, if I can make Moore's League, I would take whatever the current league is and just say you can't do Vault Pact and Reflect is back.
Ooh,
it used to be. There'd be Reflect packs.
That would be pretty fun. I would enjoy that.
Just something. I don't know, anything that's a speed bump.
Yeah.
Where you have to deal with it. You can't just assume you're gonna.
Do you think they're gonna add anything to Reflect though? Do you think they're actually going to change it?
No, of course not. No.
I feel like they have added the Pantheon things. Like they're already a tool. Like we've gotten more tools. So why would they add those tools and then change it? That seems odd to me.
So wait, you're saying why would they add the tools and not change Reflect?
No, and then change it? That would seem odd, right? So they give us the Pantheon things and then they do like a big rework. So unless on that. Because then they give us the tools and all the things in the tree and everything, and now it just works completely different. And all these things are now just gone. Nobody cares about them anymore.
But we're okay. So maybe I don't follow your logic because they've given us power to deal with Reflect.
Yes.
Through the Pantheon system, right?
Yeah.
So the thing is,
and the tree.
Right. So wouldn't logic say that what they would be doing is giving us more tools to deal with Reflect, and then making Reflect more of a problem? Right.
More of a problem. I think no. When they say rework it, I feel like they want it to be less of a problem, less of a grievance to people.
Did they say specifically they were reworking Reflect?
I'm not sure if I
don't remember that being said. But there's okay.
It's definitely in the ether somewhere where it's been mentioned, either by someone or in an interview, or maybe it was Sticky talking to them where they were maybe thinking about reworking it, but maybe not confirming it. I'm not 100% certain on this.
Right. I guess I'm just saying I don't follow. We're just different people. What you're saying makes no sense to me because just from the perspective of, to me, if they're changing something, it's because why would they do that unless they were buffing it? Why would they give us more tools? Because already Reflect is a complete non-issue.
Oh no, that's not true at all.
Okay, when does it play a role? It's when you do so much damage and you don't hit your Victors.
No. You kill yourself. You can have 100% leech and you still kill yourself. Because you take damage before you heal. And if you kill yourself on the first hit, you're dead. Like if you kill yourself before you heal back, you're dead. And there's a lot of builds that can accomplish this.
Okay. I mean, all right.
If you play standard, I can tell you that you're gonna see a lot of people complaining about how they one-shot themselves.
Right. Well,
I'm just to
make a. Yeah, no, I understand. I should make a custom shirt that says "fuck standard." And I hate saying that because I'm sure there are people who play standard who might listen to the podcast. And I don't mean that. I want them to be able to play the game. I just hate. I hate that there's balance considerations based on your dude with 7 mirrored items or whatever's going. You know what I mean? Some legacy unique. And
well, it's not really. It's not only that, but there's also a style of build that hits really hard.
Okay.
And really slowly, and then you're dead.
Okay.
Versus the super high mirrored speculator guy with tons of hits and high evasion, never phases him.
Never, right. Anyway, I maybe Reflect is a bad mechanic, and we could argue about that.
Sure.
And I'm not saying that bringing it back is necessarily the salve to all our ills, but I do point to that as like a demarcation point for when I thought builds started getting really fucking stupid.
Yeah. Oh, with the like the aura reflect that going away, right?
Yeah, that going away. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
because it was like the thing is, whether or not you like reflect, you have to understand its purpose.
Right. Speed bump.
Yes.
Of some kind. Right. So, it's interesting because I think going back again, hindsight's 2020. I would not have removed Reflect. I would have removed Vault Pact back then, because that was one of the big reasons why there was all this stuff back and forth. Because Vault Pact didn't care about Reflect, and back then people didn't have enough damage to kill themselves, really. Although they could with Discharge, you could kill yourself. That was really it. Maybe Flame Blast too.
Oh, on a one shot.
Yeah, you could, or Detonate Dead. I guess some of those things. But then people dealt with those things, of course, by put on Rise of the Phoenix and get a Ruby Flask, etc., etc.
Yeah.
But anyway, I don't know. I still don't know what the answer is. I guess. I mean, I can already feel the Reddit comments being like, "Well, it's a different games. Get over it," or whatever. But I do think that there are more people who have started to realize that some of the way the current game is a little silly. And I know that GGG is trying to pull that back. I don't always see how that's accomplished unless people are forced to be more defensive than they are. And the problem is with that is you can get all your power from your Ascendancy now. You can spec almost no offensive on the regular tree, beyond, of course, nodes that no one would ever skip. So making the argument, well, whatever some dumb argument people make, if you spend 2 points for a node that gives you 30 spell power and 10 cast speed, there's no one on the planet who would not pick up those 2 nodes for 2 points. So every build gets those, but you can get those bare minimum notables in the 3 places in the tree you go. So there's 6 of those to pick up. That's all you need. Everything else is defense, and your Ascendancy carries you. So it feels like I don't know. I guess the Pantheon does seem more defensive. I guess we'll see. I do think things do seem to hit a little harder. Things do have a little more health. I still think all of that solved by just doing 3 times as much DPS, which is still very possible to do. And I understand Vault Pact's removed, but I don't know.
I don't know. I don't think we solve it as easily. The problems we're faced with right now are definitely some that are gonna be more apparent, and players are gonna have to deal with more. There's more things players have to deal with now. You have to engage more in playing the game. I don't think there's it's more of a give and take now, I feel.
Okay.
Where you blow through the map, but you struggle on the boss, or you cut some of the map, the map clearing speed, and you don't struggle on the boss. And then there's a few builds right now that are just very powerful. But there's always going to be powerful builds.
Always that. Yeah.
And SRS is probably going to be one of the really powerful builds going forward, because it has kind of the whole package. Though it still won't compete on the map clear speed with EK Nova on builds like that. That's still going to just blow through the map. And then it just gets to the boss, and unless you have sick gear, you're just gonna portal out the map and go to the next one.
Right. But the EK thing would be solved by if there was reflect. If there was a reflect aura, you'd have to spec.
Reflect aura?
Yeah, you'd have to, I don't know, you'd have to change the build a number of ways.
Yeah.
Or, I don't know what. Physical mitigation, right? Because EK
yeah,
reflect
it was the one of the big reasons why people didn't play EK back in the day.
Yeah.
Because you saw everyone just killing themselves on reflect.
Yeah.
But again, that's kind of sad. Isn't that kind of like that's not really what we want, is it? To just exclude all physical spell builds because they don't have such a hard time mitigating, like an area reflect.
Isn't that same argument what was said about volatiles in some form or another? It's a weird. I agree. I agree with the sentiment.
But should we take away should we then add back reflect? Because volatiles are gone. Like if volatiles are a bad mechanic and area reflect is a bad mechanic, why have either of those?
Okay, but then what is the danger? That's what I keep coming back to. What provides suitable danger to make a compelling leveling experience?
Sure. I think for the leveling experience, it's. Are you talking because at the higher levels, I think that some things could be. I don't know. I feel like I'm in danger a lot. I think you have a lot of choice in terms of how you create the danger, like where you want to take the risk, how you want to roll the map. I think what we had some years ago with the mapping was that you felt like to get appropriate award out of your map, you had to roll it somewhat dangerous. Or you ended up taking risks because you could keep rolling for the perfect map and it just wouldn't hit. So you would have to go with something that gave you a lot of like quantity and pack size, but there was a risk involved. But you were happy with that because you didn't want to spend another 10 chaos where you would end up rolling that map with no risk and high reward.
You're talking before they changed the map system? You're talking about...
No, I'm talking before some of the more profitable leagues.
Okay.
So let's say that the next league is not going to be too profitable, and let's say bosses are going to be very hard to kill. Well, then you can't just speed through and then quickly kill the boss. And so now you're losing all that boss loot, or you're taking longer, or you have to roll the map harder. There's like a lot more choice in terms of how you approach this. And if it gives you less loot, well, then you also have to, like, you're then more willing to take more risk to then get more loot.
Okay. Less loot being relative, though.
Yeah, of course.
Right. Less loot to right now, but not
to right now. But still, that's still a step in the direction, like back to where you had to take more risk to kind of sustain yourself. You know?
because I always think of these. It always makes me laugh because I always I think back to. I think one of the better analogies I made on this podcast.
Sure.
And a couple people commented where I talked about how GGG does two ways of nerfing things. They either come up to the skill and shoot it in the head in front of everybody, or they make the thing walk around a boulder and then there's a gunshot. You don't really know if it got nerfed, but they say they killed it and it's like over there. So like when I hear the it's a step in the right direction, I agree with you, except for the fact that your house already burned down and all your family was killed because of so much loot. You know, if this amount of loot dropping is a problem, you consider it a problem, we're like in thermonuclear war. And they're like, well, we pulled back a step from that. We're only killing everyone with regular bombs now. Yeah, but everyone's still dead. I
don't think the game is in that state. Like, I wouldn't call. I really don't.
Okay.
Take out like legacy stones.
Okay, fair enough. Take out legacy. Take out Piranhas. Take out some of the stuff.
No, not Piranhas, but like Piranhas was nowhere near in my view. In terms of like map sustaining and like, because there are like certain things that are required for you to run through maps, and Piranhas didn't add much to that. Like there was more of a giving us all the uniques. Breach in the beginning added so many maps, so you just like sped through that so quickly, and then they nerfed that. They were quick to nerf that. Okay. Because that was too much. And then Nemesis was ridiculous. So much extra stuff.
Right.
Or not Nemesis, Legacy with Nemesis and all the other things. Like that, like you had to do nothing and you had maps all over the place.
Yeah. Okay,
I'm playing through the map system right now, and I feel like I'm like on standard, and I'm alking everything, running on-ID'd maps, and everything is crazy. And I'm like, okay, I really have to be smart about how I do this, so I don't just fall into so I fall down several tiers and have to work my way up again. Right. So I infer more risk to my character all the time, and I'm okay with that.
Okay, all right. I'm willing to see what ends up happening, because I feel like I wouldn't bet on GGG not giving us the stuff. Okay. Like if I had to place a bet on whether we would get something more like Legacy or Breach or whatever, I would bet more like that. Because again, we talked about it last week.
But imagine something like Essences as well, right? Essences does nothing but impose risk.
True.
For something that you can then use to craft.
Right.
So Essences is a good give and take here, where it's not providing any more maps either. Like we got the Atlas system for that, and then we had all the Essence stuff, and that was interesting. I was enjoying myself in Essence. Actually, I found it pretty interesting, though I did find it kind of hilarious that Essences were 10 times stronger than bosses, which now is reverse, because I have done multiple for Essence monsters, and they are nothing compared to bosses.
But they obviously nerfed them quite a bit.
Probably, but it feels a lot. It feels right, at least. Yeah. They're still very dangerous under the right circumstances, but they don't feel like they're the boss of the map anymore. So that's a very good thing.
But so that's a good point. I think if the league is like that, then we can see. Yeah, well, I think it's just like we talked about last week. There's that league, which is much more what the first league will be like, and then the second or third league is going to be more towards Breach or
probably
Parentis or whatever. Anyway, I don't want to. I'm not saying the world's ending. I feel like it's tougher and tougher for me to find the thing that I'm sort of looking for a little bit.
Yeah.
And I don't think I'm alone. Maybe it's a vocal minority. People throw that around all the time about any discussion on Reddit, but how, in almost any subreddit, but how discussion's ruined by a vocal minority and fuck them and all this sort of stuff. So I don't know what the answer is. I think that it does seem like it's a step in the right direction, and I hope that it continues a little bit, because I just hate feeling compelled to. I don't know. I said it before, and I'll say it again. I'll say it till I'm dead. I hate the argument that, well, you don't have to do it.
Oh, I hate it too. I can't stand it.
I can't. Okay, but I see it though. So it's like, I don't know why. Like, it's like saying, wow, there's all these cars everywhere, and I still have a horse and buggy. Well, you don't have to get a car. Yeah, but I have to feed a fucking horse and like all this other stupid shit. Whereas I can just get a car. So. It's like just to me, it's just such a bad argument. And I hate that feeling of where I feel pressured to have the movement skill going 1,000 miles an hour.
Yeah.
And I do think it's, in some respect, I think Volpact and some of these other things suffer from the same. That's where you feel pressured to do it, right?
Yeah, because I feel like there's no real. There just isn't any other. There isn't any other option that is nearly as powerful.
Right.
So you always feel as if you're just taking a route.
You're just shortchanging. You're shortchanging yourself.
Yeah, every time.
Yeah.
And it's not a very good experience.
No. And I just wish they were a little more. Okay, we've really given this a shot. It's over. And I think that, honestly, I gotta say, it's the same thing with the movement speed, or not movement speed, the movement skill meta. I don't know.
But just look at the choice of health pool meta that we've had and where we are right now. Like they cut ES down so much.
Sure. But
and we have all these.
That was at, not to be.
No, I agree.
That was at the level of thermal. Like weird.
That was thermal. Yes. Okay. I would say so that right there. I can agree. That was so over the top.
I mean, it's unfortunate. It's unfortunate in these circumstances where the person who makes the comment, you get parroted forever. And take it from me, I know how that goes. But what was it? Was it Rory who said, whatever the comment was about life is actually
technically
really
better
strong.
than ES?
Technically, that's what it was? Technically better?
Yeah.
It was technically better.
Well, but then it's just it's such a silly thing to say, man. Oh, 'cause sure, yes, life protects you from stuns and ailments and all that, and we on a 1-to-1 point basis, sure. But then there's the well, you can get for every life point. In comparison, you get 2.5 ES points whenever you look at the actual game, and then it's not that case anymore. And it's just
that's such a stupid. That's such a. I don't know what logical fallacy is. I don't think it's straw man or whatever. But where they say, well, 5,000 ES on 5,000 life, then life's better. But the thing is, that situation never occurs.
Yeah.
Whatever gets you to 5,000 life gets you to 9,000 ES or whatever the however it works. So yeah, and it's funny to me because. I do really try to make it a point of pride not to go out on the limb on stuff like that, because it's like, be like, let's say I was railing against the Pierce change.
Okay.
I just would sound stupid because I don't really know why go out there. So it's funny to me. I always get a little nervous because it is one, it's off the cuff. I think that was a podcast, right? That he was on when he said that.
It was.
Yeah, it was. So okay, so
it was more. It was more like a humorous comment from his side, more than anything. Like it was not intended to be a statement on the state of life versus energy shield, in any way.
Yeah. But it was like,
it was just ill received because of the state the game was in at the point that everyone could see.
Yes. It was a problem. And then it took them like 3 leagues to deal with it. I mean, that statement happened like over a year ago, I want to say, at this point.
Really?
It was on State of Exile, wasn't it?
Was it? Was that long ago?
Dude, it had to be so long ago at this point. So it just got fixed now? I mean, I think that's...
Well, it's kind of like a system overhaul we're talking about here when it comes to that. Yeah. So...
No, and then that's fair. It does. It's a weird. We're in this weird thing where I sometimes I'm always like, how it was the same thing with Blade Vortex. That took a long time to get really much of an adjustment. And the Flame Blast. But again, Flame Blast is great. Well, one of the best design skills they've ever made. So I see why it's tough to change. But you could see why people get a little binky about it, because they're like, okay, well, you keep saying this, but here we are. And anyway, my point being, though, now is the time, and I wish they were being a little more aggressive. That's all. I think they've been appropriately aggressive.
I think they've really been appropriate in their aggressiveness. I think if they take it further, they run the risk of alienating a lot of players.
Yeah, but this is such a classic thing. If you worry about that too much, then that ends up hurting things in the long run, doesn't it? I really think it ends up hurting things in the long run. I really, really do. I think Parandis hurt the game in the long run. It was fun at the time.
Okay.
A lot of people point to it as a great league. I think the concept's a great concept. I still think it ends up hurt the psychology of the makeup of the player who plays PoE. Permanently altered it to where... Yeah. Reward ratio or something has been permanently changed from that point on. I really feel like it.
But they are affecting a lot of players with these changes. Like
true.
Big
that
time.
Is true. That is
big
true.
Time.
Yeah. So okay. Anyway, we talked about it enough. I'm excited to see what happens. I didn't know that Scorching Ray. I didn't know that Scorching Ray was so buffed.
Oh, it was so good. It is still good. It's still really good.
Yeah, I'll have to check it out, because I mean, for me, on my Scorching Ray character, I guess that was really the problem. There was no other real gem besides Empower, because I guess did I replace burning damage with Empower, and those were really only 2 gems that really did anything. So and I wonder, do you think we're going to get we're not going to get something like Shaper, but do you think we're
going to get something akin to Malachi?
Yes, so we'll get a boss that'll be that tier 17 map. that's from
Possibly,
Act 10 or whatever.
yeah. To like
What is
Kitava being like the same like tier as Shaper, but he's like his own thing over there.
right? Or maybe 6. He's the same tier as a Guardian, maybe.
You think so?
They're 16, right? No, I'm
Yeah,
just saying that's a
I think he
potential.
could be higher. I think he'd be. I think they would want him to be of a higher tier than Guardians.
Okay.
That would make sense to me at least.
Do you think there'll be a race to kill him like there has been for previous things?
Maybe. I don't know. I think that would be cool. Like at least the merciless one, right?
Yeah,
that would make sense. Yeah.
So I'm
also, what do you think about like where do you think the Eternal Lab is going to be? Just on that note, after him, because right now you in the current game you can stop in Act 4 and then map and never encounter Malachi and Merciless. But you've already encountered them twice, so it's like, well, why even bother forcing people there again?
Right. That's a really good question.
Maybe they do want players to go all the way before entering the map system. I would hope so.
Yeah, because I feel like the Eternal Lab placement, that ended up being a legacy component of the way the game came together. Because it at one point, it was the farthest thing.
Yeah, it was.
Right? And then they added Piety.
Oh, yeah, that's right. Yeah.
And then they added Dominus.
Yes.
And then Act 4.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I mean, now's the time to fix that. I would assume... Yeah, that's a really interesting question, because it's been such a, like, we skip all of Act 4 in Merciless right now. Mm-hmm. So would you be able to skip Act 10? I feel like no, but maybe... Well, so Piety lost a point. Yeah. I guess we got a point. We got a point in some other places. I guess it really comes down to whether...
Well, I think we're still missing a point and a charge.
Okay. So,
or something like that.
Defeat of the Act 10 boss opens up maps and gives you your final, ascension.
Possibly,
yeah. I wonder what level... The interesting part for me is it didn't seem like they really changed much in terms of the leveling process, 1 through 4, of Act 1 through 4. So that to me means that Act 10 should be equivalent to what is Act 4 Merciless.
Yeah.
But then see, the problem with that is, in reality, I don't know. I feel like so this is really, I hadn't thought about this. This is a really good question, Nugi. I think if they restrict maps to after you kill the boss, that actually makes it much more compelling.
Yeah.
Right, because right now you farmed Red Lake and you go to maps and you can go back and kill Malachi once you've gotten 10 levels out of it.
Yeah.
But you have to kill him to get into maps, and there's no dried. I mean, I guess there has to be a dried lake equivalent, right? There just has to be. But it's a much more. They could fine tune the fight a lot more. Mm-hmm. Versus Malachi, I feel like they made Malachi really difficult because they were like, well, people are going to skip him a lot and or whatever. They wanted it to be kind of compelling.
Yeah.
And then they were like, whoops, that's a fine thing to have for Merciless and maps, but normal and cruel can't be that difficulty because it was insane. Cruel Malachi was fucking absurd. So
that was like the last hurdle you really had, honestly.
Yes, was Cruel Malachi for that period of time. So that's a really interesting point. So if they make that last, couple bosses or whatever goes on in the story, because no one knows, I think that's a really interesting. They're even though it's less flexible, I think it ends up being better and more flexible for the game, because then the boss fight can be compelling. Maybe it doesn't have to necessarily be super hard, but it has to be very appropriate for the level. It's a story.
Yeah.
Got to do this stuff, and because Malachi was just kind of a brutal check in some sense. I didn't think it was that compelling, although I liked collecting the things from the bosses. That part was cool. The Malachi fight itself I thought was interesting, but just seemed a little overtuned. But if they make it appropriately tuned, because you have to do it at the point when you get there, right? Then I think that's very, very compelling. So I guess we'll see. I hadn't thought about that, Nugi. That's a really good point to bring up. I mean, what do you think? Do you think that's the way they should do it, or
like with the Eternal Labs, or
let them go and
after
9 to maps? Yeah,
I think there It's like now you unlock the secrets of the Eternal Lair or something. I feel like we don't even like what is the. We did have who was it? Silk down there or whatever with the lab like where you had to go into your first map and stuff. I'm not entirely sure how that works. There might be some lore things tied into that.
Right.
To where he allows you to explore that, and then because there's like the whole map system is like some sort of thaumaturgy, right? And or some kind of magic, right?
So, yes, created to God, I can't remember I gotta think back to my lore here. Yeah. So I guess.
But I would hope it comes after. I would hope that you are compelled to do 1 to 10.
Okay.
Maybe it could be on your second playthrough. You could stop earlier and go to maps, but at least in the first one, akin to the lab stuff, that you would have to.
Yeah. And Scion or whatever. You have to. I
really hope that they make. I don't know. It feels like you would have to be the end boss to get to the end game.
But I mean, they don't need to do anything like that because naturally the game accomplishes what you want because you get the map device from Zana on your second character, right? So you could always go there early.
Yeah, maybe. Yeah.
So I feel like unlocking to be able to talk to Zana the first time and et cetera, you have to beat the game in that first character. And it fits nicely with what they've previously done, as you say, with lab and all this other stuff. Yeah. All of that kind of ties in. So yeah, okay. Well, wave 4 of beta, I guess, is later this week, and then I guess what we should say is let's tentatively.
Oh, for the turmoil stuff as well, to see how that pans out, because that's going to be next Saturday again.
Next Saturday again, so we might have to tentatively have a coffee talk on Saturday.
Yeah.
Right. Okay. And maybe I know there's a guest or two that I wanted to invite.
Yes, I've been so swamped as well. So
yeah. Okay.
Tonight, I'm actually going to start inviting people again, so we can have a talk about that.
Why don't we say? Let's wait for okay, here's what we'll do. Let's wait for the announcement of what turmoil is, and then things, etc. And then that, okay, so Noogie might not be streaming at that point, and I don't know what my schedule is going to be like, but let's just say it's easier if we tell people to come to your channel.
Okay.
The next time you stream, after that announcement, we'll have what we're doing.
Ah, sure. We can do that.
So I think that's fine, because I thought they said Monday they were going to talk about it. So Monday or Tuesday, we'll say, oh, okay, it's starting Saturday, so we're going to do the podcast, and we're excited, and here's the guest based on, or whatever, all that stuff. So people just check in at somebody, and I'll of course put it in my stream and my auto thing, but people can come and find what's going on, because I liked what we did. Saturday. I thought that worked out really well.
Yeah, I think so too.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I want to thank everyone for this. Is a bit of a longer podcast. We didn't kind of plan on it like that, but it ended up being like that. So, for anyone who's new, if you care, I hope you do, because every time you don't, a puppy dies. So remember that. You can go to the coffeetalkpodcast.com and click subscribe, and then you never have to do that again in iTunes. And it's on Noogie's YouTube channel, which is
youtube.com/nugiyen.
Yes. I don't even, it's funny. I don't think I even know it, because I just type NUG in my browser now, and it just
pops down.
It just pops up. And in fact, the other day I was going to your stream, and I typed NUG, and then I hit enter, and then I went back to my work, and then I'm like, what the fuck's going on? I'm like, oh, because I'm going to your YouTube now all the time. It doesn't go to your stream anymore, which I'm used to being. I'm used to being able to just type, ETU, and I go to ETUP, or I type, ZIZ, and I go to Zizaran. So anyway, listen, these are the sacrifices we've made as people for your enjoyment and for people to get something on the podcast. I hope people remember that, how much I've sacrificed, that my browser, when I type NUG, it does not go directly to the stream. No, look, it's, and so this is these are big things. So yeah. But anyway, thanks guys. Appreciate it. We'll see you Turmoil and next week and to infinity and beyond.
Yes.